NAMYGN is a youth-led initiative under the auspices of the IAEA, so to speak, which is here to mentor, develop, and capacitate young individuals and create young professionals for Namibia. So what we are seeing is that we have strategies that we are looking at, because our president is very clear. We are the third largest producer of uranium. However, what happens is that we are just exporting this resource. With that, we are having a high unemployment rate. Graduates are on the street. How do we bring that back? So we have a high skills deficit when it comes to nuclear. So we don't want to get ourselves into it. We are creating a sector and then we don't have a capacity skilled workforce. So that's where NAMYGN comes in. So we want to reduce that skills gap by capacitating our young professionals, and also understanding that there is a youth imperative that understands that we, the youth, are the future, but we cannot be speaking about the future in the sense of it's 2 days away. The future is now, because if we are going to be producing, we are the largest producer of uranium in Africa, and we are not playing in the nuclear field in that aspect. We are actually shooting ourselves in the foot. So what we want to do as NAMYGN is we want to capacitate and create a strong human capital for Namibia. When the time comes that we are not just importing knowledge and expertise, but we are also using our own people and having our own people be the forefront experts in this field. So that's where the main vision of NAMYGN.
It talks a lot about value addition from your point of view.
Indeed.
And now, how does NAMYGN envision positioning Namibia as a future leader in nuclear innovation, climate solutions, and energy security?
So one thing that I would say is that we are already the largest producer of uranium in Africa. There we are already in the playing field. So what we now need to do is we need to understand, and the great thing that is happening is that we are actually having regulations in place, and now we are having a nuclear bill that is on the cards, and there is some sort of workshops that are happening on the implementation of that bill and so forth. So what we are now looking at is how do we position ourselves to understand how to take charge of this. So if we look at Namibia, we are a small nation, but we have our geography is very large. So there is something called small modular reactors or micro reactors, which it's innovative technologies that we can use. And then also to look at our youth. We have a high youth in our population. The youth we are high. The youth is a lot. So what do we do with that youth? We have this capacity, we have this youth pool, but we have a high unemployment rate. How do we reduce that unemployment rate? How do we, with that, also cascade it down and bring it down to reduce poverty? So these are the aspects that NAMYGN is actually looking into.
You talked about the nuclear bill. What does that actually entail?
So I would not go ahead of myself by going into conversations that are being had in Parliament and so forth. But what I can say is that this bill is ensuring that Namibia is having a proper like nuclear waste. There must be some sort of a proper way to
waste management.
Yes, and then also ensuring that our people are the workforce. We have a strong workforce, thereby reducing poverty, and also that we capacitate our institutions and our society and inform them. So there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes, but I would not speak to the nuclear bill right now.
Okay, then let's come back again to the NAMYGN that brings together young professionals. You talked about the youth from engineering, law, academia, safety, hydrogeology, marketing, and leadership. Quite a wide range, I must say. How does this multidisciplinary structure, support youth empowerment in the nuclear sector? So,
thank you for that question. So, what we actually did is we have a advisory board that we have enacted. We sent out applications, and people we selected a wide diverse. So, we have experts in radiation like Dr. Vera Mika Ushona, Ms. Njala. Then we have experts in the academia phase, whether that is now Dr. Johannes, Professor Asa, and then we have experts in hydrogeology, Ms. Ilonga, Ms. Afrikaner, and then we have youth leaders, that is Mr. Maximilian, Ms. Saima, and so forth. So it's a wide range. I have not called everybody in the board right now, but it's a wide range. We have 10 female and 7 males on the board. So it's diverse. It's from different education levels, different expertise, and a wide range of age age range, because we want to ensure that we are, that's why we deliberately call it the young generation, because we want to involve people from 16 to 40. And now when we are setting this process up through the board, what we want to do is we want to ensure that the board is actually the sounding board that sets up, and with communication obviously from the African side and the international side.
My next question is the role that NAMYGN plays, you know, in terms of preparing young people. And you talked quite elaboratively about it already before, but I just want you to highlight about the careers in nuclear science, radiation protection, energy planning, and small modular reactor technologies. Quite interesting topics, I must say.
One thing that I would say is we want to demystify this thing where nuclear is just about nuclear bombs or nuclear power plants. We want our young people to understand that there are applications in agriculture, there are applications in research and development, there are applications in ways how to reduce our water scarcity through, for example, isotopic hydrogeology, where we have experts in our board that we can pair mentorship and so forth. So what we are seeing is that we need to understand and break down the myths that are attached to nuclear, and also thereby, but we need to do it in a peer-to-peer conversation, because there is that trust building between peer-to-peer and youth communication. So that's why when NAMYGN comes in.
One of NAMYGN's strengths is science outreach and public awareness. How does the organization, you know, address misconceptions? And you talked about demystifying as well, about nuclear energy and promote nuclear literacy among, you know, young people.
So the first thing that we want to do is we want to enthuse and make people understand before the myths set in right. So what we want to do is we want to raise awareness. So we want to start at the grassroots level. What we envisage to see is that we don't only want to teach learners, we want to actually have that conversation with the traditional leaders, with the parents, so that this conversation of nuclear is actually had at home. So that, for example, if we had, for example, just taught a learner about this and then they go home and the conversation is not understood by the grassroots or by the parents, by the grandparents, by the aunties and the uncles, which are the people that they are exposed to. If that conversation is just limited to a learner, it does not make sense. So we have a wide-ranging, so to speak, strategy to ensure that the awareness building is let's say, for example, is increased in scope, so that we are sure that the conversation is actually lasting at the home level and moving through and cascading down.
Let's take that analogy of where you said a child comes home, tells his or her parents about, you know, nuclear energy and all that, and in a very simplified way that they can understand. Now, considering the widespread myths around nuclear safety and waste, how does NAMGN, you know, ensure evidence-based communication, and communication from a layman's point of view when educating communities about it? Yeah.
Okay. So the one way to do that, I actually was privileged to be on a regional expo that was funded by the Chevening Alumni Fund, and we actually went through the country, all the regions, and we had we reached quite like more than 5,000 learners in that thing. And what we realized is there is a lot of interest in nuclear. However, there's a lot of myths that are attached to nuclear. So what we then did was we gave out the learners, for example, like, come up with projects. Tell us, how do you see nuclear besides nuclear power or nuclear bombs or nuclear energy? So these learners came up with such creative ideas, and therefore, I think that also triggered something in me to say, but I don't actually want something of this nature and this magnitude to actually just end here. What we want is this thing cannot just be 1 week and it cannot only reach certain places. We want to reach remote areas. We want to reach as many Namibians as possible, because you need to have public buy-in.
Definitely. And how will NAMGN support, you know, NAMYGN support the implementation of Namibia's Atomic Energy and Radiation Protection Act? And I wanted to just hone in on that a little bit in terms of its alignment with the IAEA standards.
Okay, so one thing that we need to understand is this nuclear is a standardized process.
Right.
So IAEA has guidelines, and there are certain guidelines that you have to follow. So IAEA is there, and then the Atomic Board, our Atomic Board is there. So in Namibia, we have the Act 5 of 2005, which is regulating currently. Now, with the new nuclear bill that is coming up, it's going to give the Atomic Board actually more executive powers. But that's something that we'll talk about another time, as I alluded to earlier. So what we are trying to say is, NAMYGN comes in there by being a catalyst, by being the connection and being the synergy between the young people and the professionals, the experts in the field, and also understanding that academia must come in, stakeholders must come in, and there must be a coherent strategy that is moving forward, because we cannot just be creating a sector without capacitating our people or without understanding the laws, the standards that are there. So we want everybody to understand and be on board.
And like you said, if NAMYGN is meant to be a catalyst, how does it leverage local and international collaborations, for instance, with IAEA and other African nations and the global partners like China and Russia to advance Namibia's nuclear ambitions?
Okay, so I was actually privileged to attend and be one of the speakers at on the sidelines of the COP30 I think last week. And I was invited by the International Young Nuclear Congress through the African Young Generation in Nuclear, where I divulged the perspectives of Namibia, where we are coming from and where we want to go and how we want to get there. So there is that communication lines that are already open. So we have the international communication lines that are open, we have contacts with the African lines that are open, and then we have regional communications with our partners, whether that is now in Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa, or Ethiopia, or Egypt, or so forth. So there is that communication happening. What we now want to do is we want government to come in to support this initiative, to endorse this initiative, to say, look, there is this initiative, because the president is very clear. We want a capacitated youth. We don't just want a youth that are just asking for jobs. Come and create jobs. So when the president speaks, some of us will listen. We listen to the speeches of the president and we say, but the president is saying this. How do I come in? Where do I solve this problem? Where am I being a catalyst of change? So that is how we actually also establish this NAMYGN.
Let's talk a little bit about how Namibia, or how we as Namibians can move beyond just simply mining the uranium and participating in full nuclear fuel cycle. So what role will young professionals play in this transition? And I know you alluded to it earlier, but just to elaborate more on this point as to what role can we play as participants in this?
So the one thing about Africa in general, and more particularly in Namibia, is the youth are vibrant. It's like we have hot blood coursing through our veins, right? So there's creativity there. Now, where do we fit in? How do we link that with the development of our country? How do we link that to our goals, our national development goals, whether that is now the NDP 6 or whether that is our Vision 2030 or the Harambee Prosperity Plan? So what we are now saying is the young Namibians can come in through, whether that is now in the agricultural sphere, whether that is understanding, becoming specialist in irradiation of food, whether that is going into medicine, nuclear medicines, whether that is now learning about reactor processes, whether that is ensuring that we take our, for example, if we were to take our unemployed graduates and use their skills and upskill them in the nuclear science and technology sphere, there we are actually killing two birds of one stone.
Correct.
So it's very, very important to actually think outside the box when it comes to nuclear, and also to understand that nuclear is the way, it is a clean energy, but we also have to use and understand that we are trying to run through the green industrialization. However, we need to understand the needs of the country, where we want to take the country, and how we need to get there.
Indeed. Now, given the long-term nature and significance of investment that's required for nuclear power projects, what realistic timelines does NYGN, NAMYGN rather, envisage for Namibia to have an operational nuclear plant or a related facility for that nature?
So I always say I will not get ahead of the government's plans, but I would suggest, technology is something that is ever changing.
Right.
It's something that is constantly changing, and if you don't move with the times, you'll be left alone. So as we are saying, we are not looking to immediately now build power plants. However, there's something called the small modular reactors or micro-reactors. They are built within a short period of time. Their cost is not as exorbitant as other plants, and Namibia can come into that area. And I've listened to quite a couple of speeches of the president, also the Minister of International Relations and Trade, where we are having partners, whether that is through the Chinese partners, whether that is through our Russian partners, or whether that is through other European partners that are interested in actually capacitating us. So we are looking at those avenues. So small modular reactors, micro-reactors, that is a way that we can go.
And just finally, measuring the success element of this, in the next 5 years, or 10 years for that matter, what specific milestones or impacts will indicate that the that the NAMYGN initiative has been successful, you know, in achieving its objectives ultimately?
So I would say we want to have a strong collaborative relationship with the IAEA, because they're already training Namibians in various areas and expertise. And that is one thing where we also have now the Woman in Nuclear in Namibia, that Dr. Vera, which is also on our board, is the president of, and we might have that conversation another day, is IAEA has programs where they capacitate Namibians, but the industry that is coming needs more Namibians to be capacitated. We are having a high unemployment rate of graduates. That is already a workforce. We can upskill these people. So what we want to see is, we want to see less youth on the street. We want to see less poverty. We want to see Namibia beneficiating their own resources. We want to bring back the industries. We want to bring back our knowledge people. We want to avoid this thing of brain drain. So the key aspect here is ensuring that Namibia is thriving with her people, and also in collaboration with other international partners, and ensuring that the success of today must not just be of today, but it must be continuous for future generations to come. So that is where NAMYGN comes in.